Data architecture, address, affiliation, and relationship learnings while studying the NPSP Data Model. Welcome to another session in data architecture. As a data architect, when you're faced with business requirements and you're trying to map the perfect object model that will be best for the solution, there can be many different choices. And you want to pick the one that's what I consider the most elegant and solves the problem the best. And I find that you can learn by studying other implementations, seeing what they did, and gather those learnings. And so when I became an NPSP nonprofit certified consultant recently, I really had to dive deeper than I had been before into their object model. And there were some really neat patterns that go beyond just the nonprofit world. Patterns that I have actually created custom objects for, and many of you have also. So by looking at them out of context, so looking at these specific elements in the NPSP model, we can see their strengths and how we might use them in other implementations. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you some documentation and go through the data model and talk about the advantages. So for your own reference, you can be in the module Contact and Account Settings and Nonprofit Pack. And there's a couple of different functional areas we're going to be going into. Households, addresses, relationships, and there's also affiliations. And if we go and look, here is actually the Nonprofit Success Pack data model. And what we're going to do is we're going to zoom into it. And I'm not here to study the whole thing. We're going to be focusing in on the concept of the address, which sits over here, the concept of the affiliation, the relationship. Just with those couple of, those are custom objects that come in the managed package. You'll see the NPSP, the NPE, the NPE4. Just with those objects, we're not going to be worrying about the entire data model. Just those. I think there's some amazing learnings and approaches we can use. You can also see this variant of the diagram. And what we're looking at is the relationship between account, contact, address, affiliation, and relationship. So those three, this little segment can offer us some great learnings. And you can actually come in here and get down in through the quip and get to the actual object model. And if you need to, the actual fields. What we're going to do is, it's a simple model we're going to focus in on, but it offers really good flexibility. So we're going to have account, contact, and we're going to have the concept of the address, which is one topic, the concept of the relationship, which is a different object, and the concept of the affiliation. And we're going to peel these back and talk about how these are structured and how you might use these concepts in your implementations. So first, let's look at address. In an address, or let's start with the household. We're going to have the concept of contacts and an account. And if you have the Simpsons from the Bart Simpson's family, you're going to have multiple contacts that exist under what's called a household account. You had this choice. You could have created person accounts to represent each one, or you can put them together. So when we look at this, not quite a data model, but a relationship, the household model creates an account, which represents the Simpson family, and then contacts, one for each family member: Homer Simpson, Marge Simpson, Lisa Simpson, Bart Simpson, and Maggie Simpson. What this is doing is we are joining them together under the Simpson family. So that's our first concept: person accounts for separate or grouped together as a family. And if you find that the family nature is more important to you than separate individuals, you may put them into this family. I have implemented this family concept in multiple other clients. And what we're going to look at first, so that's just account and contact. We're going to look at the concept of address. So in the standard data model, you have address on account and not on contact. You could put it on contact, but the question is going to be, where does the family reside? And you could be doing the address on the account. The billing, there's a billing address and a shipping address. But you may have variants where people might have more than one address, a summer home, a winter home. They might have some family members that reside in one location and some family members that reside in another location. So you want a data model which allows the growth past beyond just the one address or even two addresses on the account. And that's achieved with this NPSP address object. And they've linked it to both the account and the contact. So the household can have an address and each individual can have an address. And if you look at this in NPSP, you'll see that they do have that. So you could have multiple addresses for a household, could be in seasonal. Now they have workflows that will automatically synchronize these addresses unless they're taken out. So what I can do is you're going to have an address, and I'm going to drop here. So you'll have the Alvarez family address and Mr. Samuel Alvarez. They'll each have a separate address. And so you'll see that there'll be one for the Alvarez, one for each contact. And there's mechanisms to synchronize them across, workflows or triggers to synchronize them. Now, what you could do is take one person out, if let's say they were at boarding school or gone away to college, but you wanted to keep them in the family, you could take them out of the standard address, but still keep them in the family. So they have organizational account address, they have address verifications, and you can even have people out of the address. So addresses, let's go back to the addresses, with a single object but linked to account and contact, you can then have each one, and this is I've Googled what was the Simpson family address, and you'll see this could have a different address for every person. In fact, it does. And one for the Simpson family. So this is how they handle address. It's a little more complexity, but they can actually have multiple addresses and even dates of times of year when an address is effective or not effective. So that's the concept of address. Child address object linked to both account and contact. Now we're going to talk about relationship. If you have two contacts, you might need to know how they are related. And it's challenging. You don't want to just have a lookup from one contact to the other because you may need to describe that relationship. And one contact could have a husband, a wife, multiple children. So a single field doesn't work. So you need this junction object called the relationship. And the way the NPSP works is it creates, instead of having a relationship that goes two ways, they have a relationship that goes one way. And I'm going to show you how that, and you add two of them. So if we come right here, we go into custom relationships. And down here, you can even manage friend and friend, mother, parent, son, father. And you get to choose whether it's gender neutral or not. And so you could have child and father. And so you get this pairing where you choose the pairing of the relationships, widows, and like the named deceased spouse. So this allows you to create these reciprocal relationships based on male or female. And so this is really interesting. And if you take a look at this, let's go to the other direction, then what we would have is Homer Simpson would have a relationship object that points to his wife. And then Marge Simpson would have a relationship object that points to her husband. That's why I'm saying it's not a bidirectional object. It's a one-directional object pointing in the relationship. And you have two of them. So this is just showing wife. And you would have father, son, mother, daughter, and all the other involvements if you decided to build those. So this is the concept of relationships. Now there's another object, which are called affiliations. So if we look at this data model, an affiliation is between a contact and an account outside of the normal household relationship. And so let's go take a look at what that can represent. That can represent that Homer Simpson could be an employee of Springfield Nuclear Power Plant. And that Marge Simpson could be a member of the Marge Simpson Book Club. So what we can do is we can have affiliations, relationships, or excuse me, this is actually an affiliation between contacts and accounts that are not their own family. So this is a very powerful concept. And this is represented right here by this affiliation object. So you have contacts and accounts, and you'll see that this offers that relationship. So there is, in the standard data model, there's our affiliation. Here's our relationship, which is from contact to contact. And here is our address right here, which is an address of account and an address of contact. So this is the standard data model, and this is my simplified data model. But just with these three objects, we can see that we can have multiple addresses, and the fact that the address is double joined means that it can be both. And then you've indicated that there is code that synchronizes them. The relationships, you would just indicate that this is one for each direction. And then the affiliations join the contacts and the accounts. And you'd have descriptors of the affiliation on the affiliation object. So this is a really elegant solution with good descriptions in the text that has nothing specific to do with NPSP, and you can learn from that. You can learn for addresses, you can learn for bringing people together through relationships, and you can learn from bringing businesses and other entities and businesses with people brought together. Learn from these objects and how they're used, and figure out when to bring them in. And maybe you want to bring them in with the exact same names, or you might have a modified version of these entities. But I definitely think it's worth looking at and learning. These are great concepts. Thank you for joining Great Households. Join me again, same bad time, same bad channel. Subscribe to YouTube, SteveTechArc, www.stevetecharc.com. Make sure you like and subscribe, and have a great day.